Hello everyone, this is Georgina Donna coming to you with another amazing episode of Jorgy's Stripping the Dipping. I have a co-host right here with me. It's my dog Duke. Hello Dukey. Okay, so it's gonna be lights out sooner, and we thought of rounding up the past few weeks and get a summary of what's happening and what to expect when the green lights do go out. And from today, we'll be doing a series of F1 episodes, and there's a co-host. That not Duke, my dog, not him. So there's a co-host. Oh wow, he's growling because I said it's not him. Okay, never mind. So there's a co-host that's gonna talk and explain, and in simple, to summarize and tell you what to expect on the coming up weeks. And that's not all. Yeah, you can do that, Duke. Yes. Okay, so that's not all. We will be having few of the extraordinary people joining us with these conversations. However, for today's episode, let's welcome my good friend, our amazing co-host, Denzel Clarkson.
Georgina.
Hello, Denzel. Welcome back to the show.
Hello. How you doing?
I am doing great. And I need to say, welcome back to the show and welcome for the whole series of F1 episodes. Yay!
Whoop, 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 whoop. Honestly, it's such a pleasure to hear that. Very happy as well to hear the feedback from the fans and listeners out there too. I hope that
Oh
they're
my God,
having a
they were
great
going
start.
crazy about you. Trust me, they were going
Oh,
crazy about you.
well, this is such lovely things to hear because, I just consider myself a normal person, a normal fan like everyone else. So
Oh,
to get that
sweetheart, you're
recognition.
way behind the now. You're a celebrity now.
I mean it though. Like honestly, for me, just like I just consider myself just one of those normal people that watch the sport. Maybe I've been watching a bit longer than maybe the average modern fan, but it's
Yeah,
so great to have that feedback and to hear such positive words. And as I was saying before, I hope that everyone's having a really positive start to the new week, and
it's
having a great
Red
time as well.
Week, of course. Yay, double the excitement.
Of course.
Okay, so tell us what you've been up to this week, Denzel. So we need to answer your fans as well before we are starting the episode. So let us know what you've been up to.
Of course. So, yeah, I mean, last week I took part in a 12-hour endurance race in the simulator for a charity event. It's to raise money and awareness for cancer support. So we had been approached by a professional racing driver called Bradley Philpott. He does real life racing in the touring car series and also in the German racing car series too. So in the little esports world that we have, he's saying he wanted to put on this huge show of 60 different teams with multiple drivers basically battling it out on the circuit called the Nürburgring. I believe Formula One went there in 2020, but we were on the extended version, which has 165 corners and it's over nearly 25 kilometers in length. So, quite a treacherous and quite demanding circuit for a 12-hour kind of charity fundraiser, but a lot of fun. Unfortunately,
That is crazy, and that sounds like super awesome. By the way.
Thank you. Well, of course, it's great to be part of it. We were really competitive and we were trying to challenge for top three, but we had a bit of a misfortune and bad luck. So, unfortunately, only finished P6. But that was out of 20 drivers in our class or division. So, still, to get a top six finish, I think was a good supportive move. And we're already looking forward to the
That's
next
a
event later
great
on.
achievement, by the way. That's a great achievement. And half
Oh,
a day,
thank
come
you.
on, Denzel, that's not easy. Half a day means like freaking 12 hours means half a day, literally. So that's not easy. And you placing P6 means like huge congratulations is on in order.
Oh, thank you, Georgina. Thank you. You always know how to put a smile on my face. And yeah, like looking back on it, I think we can take a lot of positives from it. And we did raise a lot of money as well for that charity. So that was a more important point that the emphasis should be on. And it's great that, we can do things like this and essentially help put forward support and help raise awareness towards parts of the world and, put focus on things that need a bit more
Exactly.
love and support and attention, of course.
I don't think there's any negativity in that cause whatever the cause that you placed P6 and not P1, you learn what the issues were and you can be ready for the next one, hopefully. and place P6 from place P1 from P6, because we've seen how Lewis went from last to first. So why can't you? Of course, anyone can.
Well, that is the yardstick. That is the aspiration, and definitely Lewis is one of the greatest in the sport. We say it week in, week out, and he can come through so much adversity, so much challenges, and probably the topic of today's episode, like the testing. It's going to be very
Yeah.
interesting how a lot of the drivers adapt and help the teams develop the car throughout the course of the season.
Okay, so let's get back to the topic then. So we had the testings done during the past weeks, and there was so much noise with the cars, the designs, the issues, and there was one issue particularly every car had, except for the weight issue many teams faced. Let's talk about porpoise. And I do need to say, I need to mention this. Those the few years back, I mean, during the era, anyone with the fastest car can guarantee their win in the whole season. That was not a question. But from this year onwards, starting with the new season, just because you're having the fast car doesn't mean that you're gonna win the whole season, because while you're having the fastest car, you need to maintain the dynamic stability until the race finishes. If not, then all hell will break loose and you will lose. So that's something special, I think. So before digging deep into the matter, I do want to mention the fact that the word porpoising is not a strange new thing in F1, but it's new to this year. The reason behind for that is the fact that this issue was last seen roughly 40 years or so ago when we last had ground effect cars. So, Denzel, why do you think we are facing these issues again after 40 years? And according to your opinion, do you believe the teams will be ready solving this problem by the end of this week for the races?
Great question there, Georgina. And absolutely, it's funny because you'd think that these smart engineers, all of them that have been to Cambridge and Oxford and all the high places in society, they would have figured it out after 40 years, but clearly not. But
Yeah,
jokes
but
aside, no,
here we
with
are with the after 40 years having the same issue.
exactly. It sounds like many problems around the world, to be honest. But yeah, to bring it back to the question, of course, it isn't something new, like you mentioned. It is something that has pre-existed in the sport in previous generations and iterations of the car. Essentially, I believe it's mainly to do with the teams pushing the limits of the ground effects. So essentially, there's two ways you could generate downforce from a Formula One car. You could either put huge wings on it, a bit like you see on an aeroplane, and that
Yeah.
helps to basically push the car to the ground and help remain stability in the corners, either through high or low speed. But the issue you have with that, and what we've seen with Formula One recently, is that when you have all these aerodynamic devices on the car, it's very tricky for another car to follow. And
Mm-hmm.
another kin that you can see in comparison to airplanes is that you often hear a thing called turbulence. So when a Formula One car is following another Formula One car, there's lots of turbulent air, which means it's extremely hard to keep behind another car and follow and overtake. And as fans, we obviously don't want to see a procession, or we don't want to see cars going around in circles, as the generic saying goes. We want to see overtaking and we want to see wheel to wheel racing. So the idea and concept of this is to revert back to ground effects, which essentially is that you have like a venturi tunnel underneath the car. So essentially
Mm-hmm.
sucks the car to the ground like a Dyson Hoover. I hope Dyson will give me a sponsor there. And essentially it's a new, well, not a new, but it's an alternative way of basically holding the car to the ground and gaining aerodynamic stability. But the issue is with this, Georgina, to see the benefits of the Venturi, the ground effect, you have to basically push the car as low to the ground as possible. And the issue you then
I
have
don't
with that.
think, I think, I'm so sorry, I'm going to interrupt you with this. I don't think they have noticed this issue, because I think it's very hard to measure when they are using the wind tunnel at the factory, because I don't think they are, it might, there might be a issue with the belt if they are pushing it way lower when they are in the wind tunnel. So maybe because of that, they didn't actually figure this out yet. Maybe.
Spot on, Georgina. You've got like you should deserve a golden star for that because that's exactly it.
Yay!
When when Formula One teams obviously do their simulations in the wind tunnels and in the actual simulators themselves, there's only so much you can push a computer. There's only so much data that they have, and of course they would like to. The kind of point I was getting to in summary is the teams want to try and recuperate as much downforce as they can, but the downside or negative to this is that when you're in a simulator, you don't have all the information, all the conditions, the bumps, the crevices, all the undulations in the road that you might be able to see on a real life circuit. And we also have to bear in mind that racetracks are ever evolving too. It's not like, they race at a Formula One track and then they cover the track down and it's like, protected. These tracks are used by
Yeah.
other racing series. They're exposed like Bahrain to extreme heat in the desert. So the evolution is always changing, and for that reason alone, you can see that the cars are going to struggle. But will probably lead us into the next question. But a lot of teams are trying to find ways around it. Some people have talked about having a controlled suspension, where essentially you have like a computerized system, a bit like they did in the
Mhm.
90s. So it's active suspension that controls the ride height of the car and helps it stabilize through corner to corner. You could do that. Maybe the second talk that they're talking about is maybe having a specific ride height for the qualifying sessions where you can get away
Hey,
with running the car
Nicky.
that low for a couple of
Okay,
laps.
I'm going to interrupt you because my dog just barked in the room and he's like looking at me, giving me weird looking, weird looks. Because I'm taking his space apparently. So yeah, okay. What I'll do is I'll ask my second question so that you can explain connecting the first and the second both together.
Mm.
So Mark Hughes, the Grand Prix editor for Motorsport magazine, he was a special contributor for F1 articles as well. So he mentioned on one of his articles that ironically the hydraulic tricks of the suspensions, which have just been banned, would have been very useful in this. So, what are your thoughts on that as well?
Well, this is the interesting thing as well, George, because with
Yeah.
Formula One, it's always evolving and there's always innovation and ideas. But the issue is that the FIA, they only have so many eyes and so many ears and so many resources. And for them to just
Hmm.
police all of the teams, it's a huge task. So the issue that you have with the active suspension, because it's something that Williams like basically perfected in the 90s with Damon Hill and Alan Prost, I believe in 1993 in those earlier years,
Hmm.
is that it's very fast, but the issue with it is it's really tricky to basically police and to monitor and to make sure that the team's not going to abuse. So even in the 90s, they had it, and then the FIA was saying no, these teams they're going too much with this now. Like they're making the car like dance and prance and do things that maybe it shouldn't do, and they have to try and balance innovation with obviously the safety of the sport too. So for that reason, they outlawed it back then. But as you said, and also Mark Hughes has highlighted in that article, it's very ironic that the same things that they outlawed many years ago is something that they may have to come back to in the future if it turns out that this porpoising issue can't be resolved with a simple fix of the suspension firmness, or it can also cause maybe a right like a safety issue as well.
Okay, so what are the significant benefits you see in Mercedes comparing to the rest of the grid? Because I've seen they also had the same issue, just like the other teams as well. And I've seen a couple of interviews done by Louise and George where they were not very confident with the car yet, but they do have a history of sandbagging
That
in
is
the
the term.
preseason and then yeah, kicking the ass of everyone on track afterwards. So there's that. But yeah, so what are the significant benefits that you see in Mercedes comparing to the rest of the grid?
Well, of course, Gino, when you have Mercedes, the eight-time world champions, you never want to write them off. For
Yeah.
Mercedes, they've come out and said that this entire Bahrain testing sessions that they've been running, it's been more of a data collection exercise rather than them pushing for fast laps. So that
Yeah.
also leads into this spectacle or accusation that maybe they're sandbagging. And it's funny because even when Lewis and George are giving these interviews and saying, "Oh no, we don't have the fastest cars. We're struggling," you can see them giving like a
They
cheeky
were
smile
laughing, they were
and
smiling,
laughing.
and I was like, dude, shut your shut your mouth and talk. If you're all, they should at least follow their boss, Toto. He has a good poker face. These guys don't.
It's so true, but that's ultimately what they get paid for, Georgina. Toto is like the director, and he can be very mean and very shrewd when he has to be. But with Lewis and George, I don't think they have a bad bone in their body. So, like you said, it's very hard for them to conceal that kind of smile or that cheekiness to them as well. But it's hard to really say because with Mercedes, I believe that maybe they were one of the teams being really aggressive with the suspension setup they were running. So you definitely saw them suffering from porpoising a lot more and sparks flying underneath the car like it's the
Yeah.
4th of July. But again, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to run the car like that in all the other sessions. So maybe, again, like they said, it was just a test experiment where they're testing a philosophy. Maybe they have a different package that they could bring with the suspension that will cure it. And ultimately, as well, I think if we're going to talk about Mercedes too, we should also probably highlight their really radical side pod design as well. And I would love to give you the floor space on that as well to get your initial thoughts on that.
Yeah, and I think we should give them the benefit of the doubt, because I think every team has issues with the cars since it's a new era. It's not the hybrid era they've been running. This is a new concept, and they have these side pods and no side pods, and everything has a design in it. But of course, they might be having issues. Definitely, they're having issues, but I don't think that's going to be a huge impact because looking at their faces, obviously. They might be collecting data and they might able to put out a good car than the ones that they are having Bahrain. Because what I've seen is comparing Barcelona and Bahrain. I think the real cars were in Bahrain comparing to Barcelona, and the real testings were done in Bahrain than Barcelona. What do you think about that?
Absolutely true, Georgina. I agree. And yes, even Mercedes confirmed, funnily enough, with the zero side pod, going back to that point, they were actually running that in Barcelona. However, they had like a vanity panel or wide arch covering it so it wouldn't be visible to the naked eye. So again, like it plays into the gamesmanship that a lot of teams play. They don't want to give away
Yeah.
their secrets. And as you correctly highlighted, a lot of teams essentially brought their full, more representative package to the track in Bahrain. And there's so many different talking points. You had Mercedes with the zero side pods. McLaren were going through a bit of a tricky time because also I don't think we mentioned Daniel. Hope you're gonna feel better soon, buddy. He's contracted COVID, and the car was feeling not so well either because it was suffering with
Yeah,
some
brake
overheating.
issues.
Exactly, and essentially McLaren had this new brake ducts, which they ran in Barcelona, and in Barcelona it was fine because it's a bit cooler there in Europe at this time of year, and less heavy braking events in Barcelona because it's more of a downforce circuit. But in Bahrain, much more like high speed circuit, more heavier braking zones, much more hotter track conditions. They're really struggling to get the car slowed down. So they were experimenting with some new stuff. We also saw the likes of Red Bull messing around with some new side pods and also a new floor as well, like some side skirts to basically channel air more efficiently to the rear end of the car to give it more stability, to keep it planted. Also, other teams too, even if it's not like a physical modification or a new package
Yeah.
on the track, there's still internal things going on in the background too. Because for the first time, we also got a word with the new Aston Martin team principal. I hope you're not going to laugh when I mention his name because he also has a quite funny one. His name is Mike
I
Crack,
know.
which I found quite amusing. I can't lie.
That went around Twitter when he was introduced as well, and they were like saying, "Oh, we can say this is crack on the grid," or something like that.
Exactly, and I'm sure that those innuendos and then jokes in his name, they're gonna continue to fly for the season. But he
Yeah.
seems like where I will give him, some like bail and some rope is that he seems like a lovely guy. He has a very cool, preserved energy about him, similar to McLaren's team principal Andreas Seidel. He was also talking about how essentially he's German and Sebastian Vettel is obviously a German driver too. So they have a lot in common, a lot of synergy, lots of intelligent things that they want to bring to the car in the future. So yeah, there's an interesting contrast between maybe teams that are throwing everything they can at the new season and a lot of teams that are just looking at the long-term run. And like, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So of course, it will be the team that ultimately build the best car throughout the entire season that will be the most successful.
What do you think about Haas and then Alpine cars as well? Because I think Haas had the fastest laps during some of the testings done. So, what are your thoughts on those?
Yeah, well, interesting with Haas as well. Well, I'll come back to the other big elephant in the room in relation to
Yeah,
Haas, but
yeah.
in relation to their car specifically, yes, Haas. I don't know if the viewers would have this knowledge, but essentially they have benefited from a new NFL like American style system with the wind tunnel. So essentially, what this means is that the richer teams and the higher teams in the grid, like Mercedes and Ferrari, and Red Bull, they've had less time in the wind tunnel compared to the likes of Haas. So as a result, Haas were actually running a very unique shark fin on the engine cover of the car. So the idea behind the philosophy of the shark fin is essentially to give the car more stability in the mid-speed corners and essentially give the car more drivability. Because as you saw last year, Spinita Mazepin wasn't having the best time on circuit last year. So they're clearly trying to iron out the diva-like characteristics of the car. But also, you have to say that maybe why Haas also had the faster times in the second and third day was because Haas were given basically more time to test because unfortunately their crate with all of the parts for the car was unfortunately delayed. So it would have meant that essentially they would have missed the first day of testing had it not been for some of those parts arriving. So I think the teams came together, and I think this was a really good gesture of sportsmanship. The teams came together and said, "Listen, Haas have already been through quite a lot of trauma in the last couple of weeks. They've lost one of their drivers. They've lost 100 million in terms of one of their investors and sponsors. It wouldn't hurt them to have maybe an extra hour at the end of the sessions. So I believe for them, Haas were probably doing some low fuel runs, maybe, which would explain why they were at the top. And also, we have to bear in mind as well, Georgina, that Formula One cars are very sensitive to track temperature. We saw in the mornings that the times were very slow and typically in the 1 minute 33s, 34s. And as the temperatures were coming down throughout the day and the temperatures were cooler, the tires were able to last a bit longer, the engines again more power because they can breathe more easily in the cool air. That's also where the performance was coming from. So nice, of course, to see Haas there at the front, but I also wouldn't bet my house on that either being the case because
Oh
we
no,
know that
sir, you don't.
exactly that the more like senior teams, much bigger teams like Mercedes, Red Bull, they're more likely to run their cars in a more conservative engine mode and likely to not be giving too much away at this moment.
And speaking of Haas, we have a new driver. Well, he's not actually new to
New
Haas, but
old
again,
new.
yeah, all new, new old. Kevin is back behind the wheels. What are your thoughts on that? Because everyone was expecting somebody new for the seat, and then suddenly it was Kevin, which, by the way, he is very suitable for the Haas seat, and they shouldn't have actually kicked him out earlier. They should have kept him, in my opinion, because I mean we've seen how Mazepin was performing. So, so what are your thoughts on him being back again behind the wheels in F1?
Oh, well, Georgina, it's lovely, honestly. K Mag, Super Kev, Special K. There's so many names for him down the paddock. And of course,
Yeah.
when he was driving for Haas, he was there for them. I think he was there for them from the first season they came into the sport. So, of course, he's got a lot of experience with the mechanics. They really love him. You could see him smiling and having banter with them, which is great. I also think it's a great yardstick for young Mick because, of course, I feel that a lot of people overlooked Mick's performances last year and his almost stable driving. He didn't really have too many mistakes or too many disasters compared to his teammate Mazepin. But of course, if you're
Yeah.
going to go against somebody more experienced, somebody with credentials, because Kevin, he's not only a successful Formula One driver, he also has success in sports car racing. His dad, Jan Magnussen, was a Formula One driver in the 90s and early 2000s too. So there's pedigree in his family for racing. And like I mentioned, he was actually a McLaren junior driver as well, like Lewis, coming up through the ranks. So he got a podium for McLaren in his first debut race in 2014 at the start of the hybrid era. So, he's no slouch at all. And also linking it back to Haas as well, it's good that they have an experienced driver that will be able to hopefully develop the car and also teach Mick. You also have to look at it as a statement as of intent from Haas, because it would have been easy for Haas to just go and take another pay driver. For them to take another driver like K-Mag in a situation that maybe doesn't have the financial backing that a younger driver may have, or a driver from a richer background would have, I think tells you quite a lot in terms of Haas's intentions and the fact that they're not here just, to basically just take money and just to be a midfield team at the back. But actually, they have and they want to create a strong driver lineup. And I think that that is a really good move from them.
And speaking of Haas, and then we can come back to Alfa Romeo, where we have a rookie there as well. Um, we have the Chinese driver, a Chinese driver for the first time in the paddock in F1. And then we have Valtteri Bottas as the partnering driver. So basically, if we look at this, we have an experienced driver and another person who's a rookie, or well, with an experience but not as experienced as the first driver they have, who can actually learn from him. So Louis and George, and then we have Kevin and Mick, and then we have Bottas and the Chinese driver. I am not pronouncing the name because I'm not quite sure with how to pronounce it. Still, I'm getting used to it, so I'm not going to use that mistake. So yeah, what do you think about that? I'm so sorry for not telling his name though.
No, it's fine. Guan Yu Zhou, or I
Oh,
believe that he also in China sometimes they invert the first and last name, so it's Zhou Guan Yu. But yes, I was really
okay.
impressed by his initial kind of days of testing in Bahrain too. We didn't see too many mistakes from him or him crashing the car or anything too silly before the start of the new season. Of course, as well, like you mentioned, he's got Bottas, which is a very experienced driver. He's worked and helped Mercedes earn their constructors championships since 2017 too. So a very experienced driver in Bottas. And with Alfa Romeo, you can see there's a feel good factor there as well. They're one of the teams as well that benefited from a lot more wind tunnel time compared to the bigger
Mhm.
teams. And also, what's quite funny is on the first day of testing, I remember seeing them put a very unique aero device on the tip of the front nose wing. Essentially, it looked a bit like Yoda with two wings, like pointing out like Yoda's ears. But maybe they want us to join the dark side. But to bring it to the technical side of it, no. Essentially, that device they put on the car to measure the movement of the front wing and the end plates. So on the side of the front wings, how much movement they were getting going into the corners and on the streets. So again, you wouldn't believe that a team like that wouldn't be doing things like that if they weren't serious about trying to be more competitive.
Yeah.
Maybe you can argue with the additional time that they've had in the wind tunnel. Maybe there's a philosophy that they have with the front wing. I know that mainly the focus has been on the ground effects and the diffuser and the rear of the car. But you have to bear in mind that the front of the car is the first part that goes through the corner. So it's equally as important. And if they can revolutionize something there or come up with something unique or wacky or a new concept which is groundbreaking compared to the other teams, then I'm very positive that the other teams will try and follow that too. So yeah, but back to Guan Yu Zhou or Zhou Guan Yu, he's been really impressive. I like his demeanor as well. He doesn't come across as a spoiled, like rich kid that, just gets everything that he wants. He comes across as quite
Yeah.
humble, somebody that's willing to learn and take things in. And those are the characters which I think the sport really embraces because nobody, unless you're Lewis Hamilton, of course, wink wink, nobody is perfect or infallible or, void of making mistakes. Everybody is human at the end of the day. And as long as you continue to learn and try and make as much progress as you can, nobody is going to have anything to say against you. And again, like, he's the first Chinese driver. So that is super exciting. It's a really good move from the sport as well. And as long as he can match Bottas and learn and pick up as many things as he can, I think he's going to be a great addition for the long term prospects of Alfa Romeo there.
Okay. And finally, I'm going to ask you this. As of now, with the results of testing and the statements the drivers issued and everything, whom do you think is in front, and what's your prediction on the first pole of the season?
Ooh, very, very nice, spicy question there, Georgina, to round us off. And listen, I am a Mercedes fan. I don't hold my bias in any way, shape, or form. But also, you have to take your Mercedes hat off sometimes and look at what's happening on track. And I have
Yeah.
to believe that overall, Ferrari to me seem to have just the most stress-free testing days. They're really
Yeah.
competitive pretty much every single day. They didn't have too many technical issues or limitations or reliability problems stopping them on track, which is great for them as well. You look at that car and it's quite radical in the way it looks. It's very different from any other cars. Some other journalists have been quick to mention that it's got some scalloped side pods, which is again a nod to like the 90s and a way of reducing the surface area drag. So it means to say that the car is going to be extremely quick in a straight line too. So I'm gonna say that Ferrari look to me like the favorites, but again, you can't count out Red Bull, you can't count out Mercedes either. Also, it's nice to see that the midfield seem to be a bit more bunched up as well. On occasions, we've seen Esteban Ocon up there with the Alpine. We've seen the likes of AlphaTauri with the likes of Gasly and Tsunoda up there too. Stroll and obviously Vettel as well were quite awesome to see up there as well. And again, it's not been maybe the greatest start or how McLaren would have wanted to enter a season with maybe a driver on the sidelines. But McLaren have always been known to be able to develop a car throughout a season too. So you can't root them out or knock them out of contention either. And that actually brings me to some additional points since we've got a bit of extra time as well, Georgina. If Ricardo can't make it back for the Bahrain Grand Prix in time, who do you think will take that seat to replace him? And
Oscar
who would you like
Piastri,
to
come
see?
on. Oscar Piastri.
Yeah, yeah, fair, fair. And I think there's been a lot of debate on that one because I think Oscar Piastri would be deserving of having a chance
Yeah,
to drive that car.
there's
But
a
then
word,
also
there's a word. Deserving, there's a
deserve,
word.
of course, we have to apply that when Mazepin and drivers like that are around. But you also have
Yeah,
to
I
kind of,
mean,
I
the
guess,
guy was winning. Yeah, he was winning all these rookie championships conservatively. So I think he deserves a seat. And if Daniel is going to be missing, then I think it should be Oscar on the seat. But that's just my opinion. There might be several options other out there. We never know because we never expected Kevin to be back behind the Haas wheels, and well, here he is.
yeah, he disappeared. And like I mentioned as well, like with McLaren, that would be an interesting one because although it would be a good story to give, obviously, Oscar a chance, he's not a McLaren driver. He's from the Alpine Renault family. So
Yeah.
I believe historically that McLaren have a relationship with Mercedes Benz in relation to their driver program. So it could be the case where they look to seek the assistance of Nick De Vries. He's the ruling Formula E world champion, and he also won an F2 championship as well. But like Oscar
Yeah.
Piastri, didn't get a seat in Formula One at the time. Also, another Mercedes McLaren driver that's in the reserves is Stoffel Van Dorn, which again is quite ironic because Stoffel Van Dorn was a McLaren driver previously in the 2018 and I believe 2019 season there. He also stepped in for Fernando Alonso for McLaren when Alonso had a quite serious crash, I think in 2016 or 15, and he broke his ribs. So they might seek to rely on those two as well. But like you
Hmm.
said, I believe that what you said is correct, and it would be out of all of them probably Oscar Piastri, which is the most deserving and probably the most relevant. But again, because of his ties with Alpine, I don't know if in this instance that might curtail him from getting the opportunity. But I
Yeah.
have no doubt that Oscar will get his shot. And in relation to that as well, there's two other points I wanted to bring as well, Georgina. One, I've seen a lot of stick on the internet for Albon versus Latifi. I know that we haven't really given Williams too much love on that one, so I wanted to ask you as well. Just what are your thoughts on the Albon versus Latifi fight? Um,
Well, I'll answer that first.
mhm.
Um, when it comes for Albon, he actually ruined his opportunities when he was in Red Bull. It was not Luis's mistake. There were mistakes done by him. So I hope that he has learned from those mistakes and he's bringing his A game to Williams as well. So, but however, I think Latifi is being running with the track more than Albon did. So I don't know, but there might be a huge, not that much of a fight, maybe, but I think Latifi might actually place and perform better than Albon. But I do need to accept the fact that Albon is actually very talented, so we never know.
Of course, I think that's a great point, and it's a really balancing like topic this one because whilst Latifi he was a bit underwhelming in his first season, in his second season last year he improved. He got points for the team in Hungary. You never saw him getting like lapped or smashed on race day by George Russell in comparison to some other team combinations there, Ricardo and Lando Norris, or even Mazepin and Mick. So he's no slouch. And of course, even with Albon, whilst I don't think he made the most of his opportunity at Red Bull, it's always going to be a difficult challenge for him to go up against Max. I don't think in the last 7 years we've seen any driver come out on top of Max in relation to a championship fight. I don't recall or remember like a teammate convincingly beating Max every single weekend. So the
I
fact that
think that was mentioned by McLaren team principal as well. He was mentioned Zach Brown. He was mentioning that issue as well when it comes to Red Bull. They've been missing a few drivers, not giving the proper opportunities for them. And he mentioned regarding Albon, Gasly, a lot of names. So yeah, and I think when it comes for most of the drivers, it's better to start with a car like Haas or Alfa Romeo or Alpine. I'm not degrading the cars, but when it comes to Mercedes and Red Bull and Ferrari, those cars are like very, very way powerful than the rest of the grid. I think I'm correct. I hope that I'm correct. For some of the drivers who are coming as rookies, it might be hard for them to get familiar with the car. So there might have been an issue with Albon when it comes to Red Bull as well. But there is also an issue when it comes to opportunities within Red Bull when there's Max and the rest of the drivers as well. So
absolutely, that is so true, and it's a dark art of trying to find the edge of performance and just promoting the best to the top teams, but at the same time giving people a fair chance to flourish and actually develop, especially if they're putting in the effort and they're behaving well and not putting the team in a negative spotlight either. And that also kind of brings me. I think we should turn this section, Georgina, into Denzel's rant of the week because there's always something that like triggers me. And this next 3 or 4 minutes is gonna be for the trolls out there because one other thing I'd like to point out and a shout out I'll give to is Sebastian Vettel. Throughout testing, he was wearing a modified or adapted crash helmet with the Ukraine colors showing support for the crisis and invasion happening around the world, of course, which I think is a good cause. But getting to
Yeah,
my actual point, I saw a lot of trolls. I won't even call them fans. I'll call them trolls underneath the
yeah.
bridge, basically using an event that happened on Thursday, or I believe might have even been Wednesday, to try and smear the GOAT, Lewis Hamilton, because I don't know if you're aware of this or if you saw it on the internet, I'm sure you did. The teams basically took a photo opportunity with each other on
Yeah,
Wednesday
but
afternoon.
Luis was not having the proper time schedules with his flights. He missed his flight, and then there were issues. I know what you're going to talk about. It means
Mhm.
there are people, the trolls. Obviously, I'm not going to call them fans either. The trolls were claiming Luis missing all these, and then mentioning where is this activist, the political activist, and he was there for Black Lives Matters and this and that. But the thing is, like when it comes to Louis, if even if he does something, he's wrong. Even if he doesn't do something, doesn't get any actions, he's wrong. So whatever he does or doesn't, he's wrong in the end for these people.
Exactly, Georgina. And you basically said it's like you're right, a mind reader. You knew what I was gonna come to because you're right, damned if he does and damned if he doesn't. And I'm sick of these people, and these people just need to go and find something else to do with their time more constructive because firstly of all, like you correctly mentioned, Lewis didn't miss the opportunity because he wanted to. His flight was delayed, and that's why he wasn't there. But also, Lewis has done more for this sport than what people that have been in the sport for nearly 50 or 60 years for the sport have done for it. So I don't understand where these people have this entitlement that they feel what Lewis should and shouldn't say when they're always condemning him anyway. And, even if Lewis had decided that he wasn't going to speak out about Ukraine, that shouldn't be an issue because Lewis has
Yeah,
always
that's
been an
his
activist
choice.
for, yeah, it's his choice. He's always been an activist for change, and people didn't appreciate it back then. So why is there emphasis on this now? So yeah, lots of trolls and lots of people out there. I hope that they get kicked out of the sport like Mazepin, and that yeah they just find something more constructive to do, man, because
Well,
that's not
I
really
think
fair.
this is utterly based on jealousy and nothing else. Because criticism is okay. You get criticized, you learn from things and all. But this is way beyond the fact that this is just a normal criticism that he's facing. This is way beyond the level of criticism where everything he does is getting pinpointed. So you can't actually satisfy every single person on earth. You can't, even if you take 5 fingers of a hand, each finger is different. So
True.
people are different, and the fact that we see a lot of negativity is, I think it runs down back to the mental health, the mentality that they hold. There might be issues, there might be jealousy, the envy towards Louis and what he has achieved, and what they haven't achieved in their lives. So there might be, how Meghan Markle is was getting all these criticism just because she married Prince Harry. At that time, during that period, it was out of utter jealousy because she got to marry a prince and the rest didn't. Weirdly,
Mhm.
that's weird, but yeah. So it was there, and then we saw how Lando Norris was getting criticized by his own fans just for the fact that he actually got a girlfriend. So I think all these behaviors run downs back for the topic of jealousy and the mental statement that they're having all around. So we can't change people, but we can change ourselves. And whatever they say, even if somebody's going to insult us, if we're not going to admit that, and if we are not going to take that for our hearts, then that's just words flying away. It's hard. Of course, it's hard for us to understand that. Of course, we are also emotional people. We do get angry, we do get sad, we feel bad for ourselves. Even our blood boils sometimes, but we need to understand that we are not supposed to fall down to their levels, because we are already one level up than them. So we are not supposed to look down, we are supposed to look up. That's what
Absolutely.
I think.
Well, true words are never spoken, Georgina, and I agree with you. We don't give these people too much attention anyway, but I feel at times as well you do have to address them and just educate them too, because it's clear that these
Yeah.
people they didn't read many books when they went to school, so that's why they're very ignorant. But it's okay,
Yeah.
and that's like why I enjoy this podcast too, because it's a learning experience for everyone, and at the end of the day,
Yeah.
we're all just looking forward to seeing some great
And
action.
I think, Denzel, when it comes for most of these people on Twitter or on Gram, anywhere on social media, what they want is attention. So they will go beyond the trend. If the trend is about criticizing Louise and getting more likes and retweets and more followers, then they will gladly do that. Because nowadays, most of the people, their lives depends on social media, apparently, not the real lives. They are not valuing the real life, they are more valuing the virtual life they're having. So they would rather get more followers and more likes than the inner peace that they should be having. So there's that.
So true, Georgina. No, absolutely, and yeah, it's a shame, but of course, like you said, we can only like, do our thing. And at the end of the day, it's not gonna ruin our party, especially when I see my boy Lewis and George, P1 and P2. Oh yeah.
Sweetheart, it's going to be the eighth championship officially, and unofficially, definitely it's going to be the ninth.
Definitely, definitely. I think anytime you see that Red Bull car, you're always gonna put asterisk next to it.
Yeah,
So
I mean, even when we tweet championship, we put asterisks when we're talking about it. So that's given.
exactly.
Alrighty, so we're gonna wrap up this episode, and we will be back with our man, the best amazing person, Denzel, to talk about
Oh,
more. So do follow us on Twitter, and Denzel have his own amazing YouTube channel that he does. And his Twitter is AMG Dens, right?
yes, that is correct.
And your channel is.
Literally, AMG Dance.
Okay, so you guys can follow up, subscribe to his channel, and follow him on Twitter and send your thoughts, your feedbacks to us. You can follow me on Gram and Twitter as well by Georgina Donna. And you guys can actually let us know the topics and the questions that you want to talk about. And if you're not going to agree with us, then do let us know why. And if you're agreeing with us, then high five, sister. Uh, okay, so then we're going to wrap it up and say bye bye and have an amazing week and see you after the first race of this whole season.
Whoop, whoop,
Mwah.
whoop. Take it easy, guys.